Hey, you. Yes, 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 you. Today is your day. You got this. Ignore anyone who tells you otherwise because you are amazing. The only thing more beautiful than your smile is your mindset and experience and your journey. Yes, I said it. Welcome to Direction Podcast. I'm Rahul Solanki, and this podcast is all about mindset, healthy life, healing, and self acceptance. Today we have got new friend Prachi with us, and she is a lawyer, she is a painter, she is an artist. She believes in art-based therapy. She is a person with full of quirkiness and unconventional thought. She have a amazing vision. She likes to draw, paint. She get locked up for a week in her room and she draws amazing things. Today we'll discuss about those. So without further ado, let's welcome her. Hi Prachi, how are you doing?
Hi Rahul, hi, and I'm all good and wonderful to be here and talk. Thank you for having me, and thank you very much for that very generous introduction. And yes, like we were discussing before this call, I do prefer the quirky and the non-conforming, and I didn't realize that I give that vibe straight out, but I'm glad that I do because I stand by that. so,
Okay,
so thanks for this conversation today, and I'm glad to be here.
let me give you some myth about art or painting because you are very close to the painting first. So there's myth related to art. You need talent to be an artist or to be a painter. Is that true?
Well, true and sort of partly true as well. Like, I don't believe in the black and white, this thing about it. But see, like the art that I have studied through life and then more intensely over the last 2 or 3 years when I really picked up the pace on my paintings, uh, is so varied and with so many genres that I'm still studying that what all qualifies as as just paintings. And art is very much varied, but just in visual arts, just in paintings on canvas, what all qualifies as good art, saleable or exhibitable, or just for your pleasure, and why a painting is hung somewhere, like in the co-working space that I work in. There's a canvas with there's a large canvas with which is not so much a conventional painting, but it is still art. And so
Yeah.
talent, I mean, of course, but what I'm trying to say with, while I'm still trying to find out all the different forms it can take and forms and motivations and everything, I think the one common motivation that really makes it art is that it speaks to you. You can have it
Yeah.
you can have it in amongst you, and you can have it on your wall or somewhere in between in your spaces when it moves you in some way. And it has to move you. I'm just talking about moving you, not moving you in a positive way or a negative way or a
Uh-huh.
desired or undesired way. Let's just keep all of that out of it. But it moves you, and it can only move you when the person making it is moved, I think.
So does it happen to you like whenever you see any art piece,
Hmm.
regardless you don't know regardless you know the painter or you don't know the painter,
Hmm.
but you can connect with that kind of painting, or you have this thought in your mind, yeah, I can draw that. I can draw something like that.
Yes, actually, when since I have picked up like the pace on my paintings and started doing it very regularly, I often fall into the trap of liking something when I feel like it is executable. And
Uh-huh.
instead of just admiring the art as an onlooker, I sometimes, and then I have to catch myself that why am I liking it exactly? Do I want to replicate
True.
it, or is it taking me somewhere? But essentially, like I am just very personally who all through my life, or as a child, who has been more moved by art than other things in the world. I am like always hyper aware to any form of art. And so for instance, when I went to the Metropolitan Museum of Art in New York City, and it has all these installations which like you say that the unconventional form of art, say for a piece of leaf, is just exhibited there in a 8 feet by 7 feet space, like box space, and just a piece of broken leaf, and someone would question why it is there. And if it is exhibited there as art, then that is just my kind of thing, in addition to all the other like conventional paintings as well. But just my kind of thing, that this leaf is there because it can take you places. Like nature is the biggest exhibit of art. So what I'm trying to say by all of that is that, yeah, regardless, yes, I tend to fall into that trap of, oh, what are the techniques? Can I do this? Can I modify this? Can I have my loose interpretations? What are the ideas these are giving me? And if something gives me an idea which I can execute, then of course I fall for it a lot quicker. But other than that, also, like, I prefer the quirkiest and weirdest forms of art, as long as it takes you somewhere, and most of it does.
As we all know, and I have mentioned that you are a lawyer and you have a passion of painting. So how this combination came into your life?
Yeah, very contrasting and very opposite. Sometimes I also wonder. But no, but actually, now you'll say that this is a very cliched thing to say, that now you'll draw a link between how a lawyer is also an artist, an artist is also trying to argue something. But there is, but I'll tell you. Okay, so I qualified as a lawyer, and immediately after that, after practicing in a corporate law firm for a very short while, I became a journalist. And a legal journalist, and of the the leading most legal news website that beats every other competition, has basically followed that website in this space. It's called Legally India. Its editor is Kian Gans, and if anything had to teach me journalism, essentially I practiced as a journalist for 7 years, and I studied the legal market extensively, and now I help lawyers. Now I have my own firm for the last more than a year, called Lawfinity Solutions, where I work with lawyers in building up their clients, their client base, using the power of content, and it's very interesting. So why I bring that up is, in doing this work of gathering market intelligence about my profession. First as a legal journalist with Legally India, where I was basically taught all the chops of journalism from scratch. And now doing the work that I do right now, you understand the kind of, you understand how I call, legal practice art, basically. Because the way a lawyer's brain works. The other day we were having a friend of mine was live on Instagram with a really popular TV host, and they were discussing how actors are given an unfair bargain in their contracts with production houses, and because there's such high competition that if one doesn't agree to the terms of the much mightier production houses, then that person can walk away and they will be instantly replaced. Therefore, they have very weak bargaining power, and therefore they cannot do much about the situation, which is either their dues are not cleared, or they're bound into unfair exclusivity or those kinds of things, and they really can't do anything. Where I stressed that what you need is a good negotiator on your side. And that is what all of life is about, about. Whether it's your marriage, whether it's your business, whether it's your personal relationships, whether it is art, you're essentially negotiating, and a lawyer is a professional negotiator. And it's all about, you can put these moral arguments forward and what should be done and what should not be done, but essentially it is about assessing what is the leverage that the party in front of you has, and what is it that you have, what are the legal rights that are set out, what is the market intelligence in your space, weigh all of that, prepare an argument, give some, take some.
Right. And negotiation, as you just mentioned, bring this point negotiation in the picture, in the light. So
Mm.
yes, for any kind of negotiation, so
Mm.
negotiation, this whole thing of negotiation start with stand. If we have one stand, if one person have one stand and one person have second opinion, and he or she is standing on that opinion, that's where two people will bang their head together and start doing negotiation. And
You nailed it,
Right.
Rahul. It begins
Yeah,
with your stand. You have to take a
yeah,
stand that this is what I deserve. If you don't believe in that, then
true.
you can never get it. And if you believe in that, there are of course arguments that you need to modify this law and you need to come up with this new legislation and this or that needs to change. All of that is there, of course, I agree. But within the framework that is already there, if you truly believe in deserving something, then there is everything, all the material out there for
True.
you to get it. The only thing
True.
is that, so these are artists and they are not, so negotiation is so let's use black and white for a change. I think
Yeah.
negotiation is a bit of a right brain skill. And when artists are focusing on honing their
Yes.
art and sharpening all of that, maybe they don't want to get into, and they shouldn't maybe. I mean, it requires considerable exhaustion of their
Yeah.
faculties. And but why I brought this all in when you talked about my half of my life being in art
Yes.
and half being in law, it's
Yes.
because as a professional negotiator, also the lawyer is living a story. He's building stories. He's tapping
Okay.
into smaller, bigger, and parts of stories and giving out stories which are going to work. And
Mm.
I'm saying stories, not lies, because there's this myth about law that lawyers are liars is a common joke and all of that. It's
Yeah.
not lie, it's a story, and a story is made out of truth. You select the truth and you fit what works into the situation. It is all the truth. So, in understanding the brain of the lawyer, not just the brain, but the work, the kind of work they do, the kind of meticulousness and double checks and balances they need to have to the due diligences that we need to have to not screw the paperwork or the black and white letter, so that they can, based on that infrastructure, they can build the correct sound negotiating argument.
Hmm.
It's there. It's art. I mean, there are stories woven into it.
As a painter, as a artist, you have a lot of art, lot of your work is published on the post on the website. So whenever you get criticism on the creative side, then how you handle it. And when you get so as a lawyer you can handle those criticisms, but
Yeah.
emotional, that's the emotional part on which people are commenting.
Huh.
So that time you use your lawyer skills to, I would say, to cover your art. Do you do that, or
Not just for hiding criticism. I think artists should do that because there's so much of fascinating stuff going on in their minds for a very long time before they come with a piece. And God forbid if they're coming up with a series, then the world inside their head is amazing. It needs to be explored. In fact, I was considering, putting out material beforehand of why I'm painting what. So not for dodging criticism, but just like that. But yes, I understand your point on criticism. But that has a few different aspects to it. One, of course, like people say that, what is your purpose in making this art and putting it out there for display? Like, okay, there are a few very purist and hardcore artists which don't even put it out there for display. And I am majorly not into that. I mean, when I feel like a work is finished, then I definitely put it out there.
Right.
Some of them don't even do that, and then they're just working for the satisfaction of dipping in the colors and feeling the texture of the colors just pouring on the canvas and all of that. And then some of them want then we have like a huge majority of artists, I feel, who still put it out there for display. Like a clap is one of some other artist in another medium. I think he was an actor and a good friend, and he told me that giving a clap to an artist is like the biggest thing you can give them, more than royalty or money or anything else, glamour or anything. You can clap for them, and that thing hit hard.
Yeah, appreciation. We have to appreciate.
Appreciation.
Yeah.
And then there are other purposes as well. A lot of, like, with Instagram, art is becoming an online business as well, and that is cool also. I mean, why not?
So that's the
explore as many
positive.
PGs.
Yeah, that's the positive side. But how about the negative side where people
Then
are
come the
commenting?
criticism. So that
Yeah.
is that first aspect, that your purpose in doing it. Are you doing it out of your heart's goodness? Are you
Uh-huh.
doing it for sale? If you're doing completely for your personal pleasure and then
Yeah.
still putting it out for it might not make a huge difference to you. Like personally, like I'm yet to experience criticism on social media. I have experienced a lot of criticism for art in real life, but not yet on social media. But I think if it comes, I wouldn't be too bothered, because then again, I was a journalist for a popular website for
Yeah.
7 years, and we dealt with trolls
So what's your
throughout the day.
mantra? So
Okay, so other than, if they're doing it for enjoying themselves, and a criticism might not stop that process, but sometimes it might. In that case, like, can I say something deeper? Because I
sure.
feel like
Yeah.
I've begun to understand this now.
Yeah.
And I was like a very willful child in this aspect, but finally I can say
Oh.
that I understand this, that when you are being triggered by criticism, or some kind of behavior or taunt or anything that is coming from outside you, and you're being triggered by it, forget whether it is fair or unfair, or the agendas or motives or what insecurities or right or whatever the reasons are for it coming your way, or the actual merit or credibility of your art. I'm just concerned with it triggering you. If it is triggering you, see, every such trigger is an opportunity for self-reflection. If
True.
something is triggering you, then it is a mirror that something related to around that point is actually already bothering you. You either have some guilt, conscious, or okay, let's not put it negatively like guilt, but maybe you want to improve in that aspect.
Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right.
Or
That's what.
not just improve, sometimes you're very ego driven, and
Yeah.
some people say something, it pokes you, that means you need to tame down your ego around
Right.
that, and it is good for you. Someone violates your boundaries, that should not be accepted. But if you spend that time fixating on the person violating that boundary, or the act of them violating that boundary, then you're losing that opportunity for self-reflection and giving all your power away to that person. Bring that power back to yourself. This is your chance to delve into what is bothering you from within yourself. And something might be wrong with that person for bringing the stress trigger up. That's not
Right.
your concern,
Yeah.
And if you can't at that time, if you can't still figure it out at that time, then just relax, forgive yourself. You will
Right.
eventually, if it bothers you, if it pokes you, then it will keep
Right.
poking you until you get the answer. And maybe it might just take a lifetime, but it's worth it. That's what life is about,
That's the beautiful thought you just put up, because yes, sometime in our life people poke us, people trigger us, and we most of the time react. And when we react, that time they have control over us, because lawyer knows how to trigger people, how to trigger emotion.
You can
Yeah.
draw what your heart is moved to, and if you are moved by it. And sometimes, what happens is we think we are moved by this idea of art, and when
Yeah.
we start putting it to canvas, we start chipping away at the layers, and we sometimes realize that sometimes, so yes, we are moved, and it exactly comes out in that dramatic fashion, and we are able to achieve the result, and it immediately moves the other person. Sometimes we have this misconception that it is our own, we are coming from the bottom of our heart or something, or some
Yeah.
sadness or some happiness
Yeah.
or something. But when we start
True.
doing it, we chip away at the layers that, okay, no, we were influenced by maybe some other artist or some other style, or, the desire to impress someone. And that is what is coming out on canvas, and that is why you're making these errors. And so I'll give you an example.
Yeah.
This is something that I saw 2 years ago, and it stays with me. So children who start to draw at, I think 4, 3, not 3, I think 4 is the age when those who are fond of, or not
Yeah.
so fond of also, start drawing, and they start typically with hearts
Sketching.
and scenery, hills and suns, and then animals.
True.
And you were talking about wanting to draw an elephant, and elephant is something common to, again, if you pick up children's drawing books, they draw elephants. Maybe the trunk is the thing which they, or something, but there are elephants, there are whales, there are then bears, and all of that is there. So this, I think, I don't remember the age of that kid in that example. I think 4 or 5. Some kid in the US drew the animals, and then his dad, who was an artist and very conventional oil painting style, did digital images of that. So he picked up the child's elephant and did a digital image of an actual elephant, but based on that child's proportion. So the trunk is going straight because it's the child's imagination.
Yeah.
And so he picked up all of those animals and with their real textures and real eyes and all of that, and picked up the child's caricature, this thing, put all the animals up, and it went up on the wall on their home. Now, whether you're commemorating your child's first drawing, or whether through this you're teaching him in a quick way, him or her in a quick way, what is wrong with the proportions of their... I mean, because such a thing will be very impressionable on the child's head. That, no, okay, this looks like a real elephant in texture and color, like what I've seen in reality, but these things about the proportion are kind of weird. And maybe that will impact that 4 or 5 year old kid a lot more than, teaching them that, okay, no, curve the trunk like that, holding their hand and teaching or something. So I'd say that's impactful art.
True.
And if you see those elephants and those bears and all of that, if this context was not there, maybe then also you would understand, because there's a pattern that, why this realistically painted elephant is again painted like this. So if you place 6 of these drawings together, maybe you'll understand. We fortunately had that explanation in that story. I think it was covered in the Atlantic or something. And so that's what it is, coming out from some deep purpose within your heart, and it's art. So there is nothing acceptable or not acceptable about it.
Right. So let's discuss about your how you, from where you have done your law degree. From where you have done your law degree.
So no, I graduated in 2011 from IP University, from Amity, Delhi, which is under the IP University. And I went to a law firm, like a prominent corporate law firm in Bombay for 2 or 3 months. That's where I started my career. And then I came back to Delhi. So now, incidentally, I had always been involved with editorial pursuits. Like I was the editor of various publications throughout my school life. And so writing had always been my thing, and art actually had also always been my thing, but in the background, because my art teacher always thought I didn't have enough patience to do art. They used to be like, you're creative, you have these wild wacko ideas, but you just don't have the patience to get the thing as it should be. So they used to use this word should. So I still had that urge from within me. I used to do it, but not. So initially, I also represented my school in these competitions. In fact, even can I show off? I even won a gold medal or 2 initially, but I was very young back then, and then I never pursued it, on a wider scale or professionally or anything. I used to do that, but writing I did, and so that is why I went straight into journalism after that.
So you were doing job in Mumbai as a journalist?
We were online. We were an online publication. So initially, yes, the editor was based in Mumbai back then. So I was there for a month or 2. I was there for 3 months around, just to understand things with him. Then I came back home, and before this work from home became a thing, I was already doing it for the last 8 years.
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah. That's good. Awesome. So when you were in Mumbai, you were having experience of working with client, of meeting with client on their legal purpose.
As a journalist, a big part of it, like writing is okay, but a big part of it is networking within your market.
True.
With mine, for me, was legal. So all these meetings. So essentially, I used to work from everywhere. A lot of hotel lobbies, because if I'm having a meeting, then no point traveling in the middle of the day. So I used to pick a place, and then I used to order my, initially you're not very diligent about saving up, no?
You have written some short lines, I would say. I don't know how you describe them.
Typical rhythmic stanza.
Yeah.
But yes, you can say it was written with the intention of a poem. Now I don't know.
Yeah.
Actually, so I had a passion for languages, and this comes from my family. So my Nanaji, maternal grandfather, was a journalist, and again very good, very, very good with languages. And of all kinds, like Hindi was his primary medium, and then English, but then very good at grasping all the other foreign languages. And so was my mother because of that, and so I think that comes from there, the writing. creativity. Besides, a lot of people write, and I think that's the good thing that internet has done is that it has made people get over the imposter syndrome. Because
Right.
again, all of art comes from your innermost. I mean, if you're feeling it and you've experienced it and you're ready to be authentic on paper, like you don't want to do drama, you don't want to represent something else, you're ready to like peel raw your actual self, then it will resonate with people.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's
true.
a good thing that is, there for a lot of people. Like a lot of these poets and, hidden closet poets are coming about because now it's not just about submitting to the most prestigious publications. You can most of the poems that I have written were, when I was actually feeling the stuff somewhere in the
Yeah.
middle of the night, and I put it out there on a spur. And I mean, of course, you can hone the craft better and, aim for merit, but at least the getting into it, like the entry barrier is very low, which is so good for art. I mean, I'm so glad.
There's one art or one painting you have done which have both your artistic side and your lawyer side. Can you guess
oh
that?
God,
Can
okay.
you guess, can you guess that?
With respect to law, I have always written about it and did journalism about it. But whenever I've painted, I've never actually considered
Okay.
painting law scenes before this. But
Yeah.
what happened, Dinesh? What happened was actually late last year. I got this commission from a lawyer who has a huge office and wanted to hang 40 law paintings.
Okay.
And around the office, and they wanted to give me that mandate. And so I had been painting off and on, but to take on like just 40 in one go
Yeah.
was intimidating for me, and that too law. So because
Right.
law, I mean, there are a lot of paintings depicting many things, as you know, from nature to flowers to gods and goddesses and dance forms and art. But if you still, even now, if you Google law paintings, they are not there. Maximum maybe Lady Justice.
True.
We
Yeah.
all know a lot about the market because we are insiders. But then I had never thought about it so artistically before. It was like very challenging in every way. First of all, that
Right.
quantity, then for
Yeah.
it to be time bound, and then for it to like, just explore a subject artistically,
Yeah.
which I haven't before.
In what time? In what time you have finished those 40 paintings?
So he gave me an open-ended thing. You say what time? And I said 3 months.
Okay.
So I finished it in 4.5. I mean, I took that leeway.
Okay.
But I did
Okay.
finish them all. I gave them 45 instead of 40 by the end of it. The good thing was they gave me like no restrictions. I said, do you want it in one particular medium? Do you want it one particular size?
Yeah.
And they said no. They gave me like they booked it for a combined sum, which was good, which respected the art form. And they gave me the flexibility to do howsoever I like. The only condition was that it should be on the theme of law. So that helped. That of course helped. As it, I mean, you could say it could have been easier if they would have told me ki, theek hai, do 10 in Lady Justice and 10 of this and 10 of that, because there's this commission system also where people give painters images and you reproduce them in our preferred medium and our preferred size. So might be it could have been easier, but I mean, I liked it, at the end of it, the experience of, because I'm more of a conceptual, I'm more of conceptual, like I'm on the conceptual side. So if you see my page, a lot of these are very original concepts.
Right.
So yeah, but you see, like the lockdown has done wonders in that aspect. That this video presenting of your case, video hearings are finally in motion, and because of that, like this profession, litigation, courts have tried to digitize for a long time now. I think it's about to be 7 years when this intense program to digitize everything is on. Hardly anything is achieved, but the lockdown like forced the process faster. Now you have to digitize, and video hearings have faced a lot of consequences because of these lapses in digitization. But now you just have to pull your socks up and do it, complete it.
So have you ever criticized your painting or like some yeah,
That's the subject of a whole another hour-long podcast. But briefly, yes, all the time. In fact, after so I have this syndrome, and I think most artists and writers and I think you might identify to it with your podcasts and other things as well.
True, true.
But I can't, with my bare eyes, look at a work after a certain time has passed. Like the amount of mistakes, and you almost feel embarrassed. But it's not a great thing to have. I mean, you might say it's the mark of a great artist who always wants to improve, but you need to learn to celebrate where you've already reached as well. It's important to your craft and for it to grow. But yes, I criticize heavily.
Yeah. So what do you think? How singing helps you to achieve this mindfulness?